Hello, everyone across North America. This is John Garmendi with Sony's Professional Display Solutions of America, welcoming you to a very special session of our Tech Tuesday. Today, we're going to have a consultant roundtable live, and we'll be covering a number of topics. We'll really, I think, cover many things that will encompass a lot of different technologies and trends. And we're going to be focusing on trends and outcomes today. So, just as some ways to kick off our conversation, we're going to cover the evolving intelligent workplace design, human-centered design of conference rooms, and systems management and maintenance. So, joining me today are three members of our Consultant Advisory Council, Rob Badenoch, Kristen Bidwell, and Pete Coleman. And I'll ask each to go ahead and tell you a little bit about themselves and their companies. And why don't we start with Rob, then Kristen, and then Pete, finish up with Pete.
Oh, thank you very much, John. And thank you to you and Sony for the invitation to be here. I always enjoy doing this. My name is Rob Badnock. I'm a partner at TAD. TAD stands for Technology Architecture Design. We're a multidisciplinary technology consultancy. Our expertise is in experience design, workplace strategy, as well as platforms for monitoring and analytics. We're based in New York City, where I'm sitting right now in our headquarters lab, with also a strong presence in the UK. From these two sites, we support projects globally across all verticals. The lab particularly is our answer to the challenge of our end user clients who are looking for us to prove and demonstrate our design assertions in this increasingly uncertain world. And certainly the topics here are chief among them. But I'm happy to be here. Thanks again.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen Bidwell from AVCT, or Audiovisual Consulting Team. We are an AV and acoustic consulting team based out of Boston, but we cover the globe with our clients. And really happy to be here. Thank you, Sony and John, for having me.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pete Coleman. I'm a principal at NV5. NV5, if you haven't heard of us, we're a large engineering firm. Our team specializes in technology, so that's AV, IT, security, acoustics, and lighting. And I'm responsible for the Northeast and also Florida. And I'm really glad to be on the webinar today, John, and looking forward to some insightful conversations.
Thanks, Pete, Kristen, and Rob. Same here. We're so grateful to have you all, and really appreciative of the fact that you've made time to join us today. And I guess just to prove that we are actually live today on November 18th, let's start it off by saying congratulations. We all made it through the Cloudflare. We're
I don't know, John. I've got a lot of Cloudflare going on over here, so
yes.
don't count your chickens before they hatch. Maybe it's not over.
Maybe I should we'll congratulate ourselves at the end of this, right? But yeah, there's a little hiccup in the internet today, and I know it had some impact on our operations here at Sony, but I think we fully recovered, and it looks like all of you have as well, and appreciate you making the time to join us. So, let's jump right in. Like I say, the topics are very broad. So I expect that we'll have some lively conversation and discussion that will probably branch off into different areas. But beginning with the evolving intelligent workplaces, that's so it's so all encompassing, right? When we speak of a workplace, I guess the first thing I'd maybe throw it over to Rob and say, Rob, in terms of trends and maybe even in definition of, now we're what 3 years post COVID, maybe close to 4 years post COVID. What is a workplace, right? Let me toss it to you.
Sure. I guess I'll go first then. I guess in the very beginning of COVID, I found myself making attempts at predicting the future based on what was going on around me. But in reality, I was only predicting the present. And at the time, of course, many of us, myself included, thought, well, obviously the workplace is forever changed. And it doesn't so much matter what industry a person is in. It seems to cut a swath across all the verticals, that hybrid is here to stay. The toothpaste is out of the tube, et cetera. And therefore, there would be huge outcomes in global markets and corporate real estate and city planning and day-to-day personal lives resulting from this. And I think I was partially right among all the other millions of people that were saying these things. Um, and then fast forward a few years, and then RTO returned to office. And I heard recently in New York City, where I am, office leases are at their highest since COVID, um, and also including the year before COVID, which was a huge surprise. And apparently, there seems to be a tremendous amount of enthusiasm. Again, probably the result largely of market forces. Um, to build new office space. And so our clients during COVID were asking us to downsize their spaces and to right size their footprint in terms of corporate real estate. And lately, it seems that that's on the upswing. But all of the uncertainty that comes from that is at its highest. The question
Mhm.
of what am I going to be the first person to say the term AI? Does that fall on me? The
Kingdom.
elephant in the room, the uncertainty caused by, exactly how the future of work changes, not because of COVID, not because of hybrid, but because of automation. And so I'm trying, maybe if my feeble attempt, to set the stage for the rest of us to continue the thread here. Um, the major thing that I see happening is uncertainty. And I think there's great opportunity for us as consultants and technologists in the AV industry and smart buildings, particularly, to answer the challenge of helping our clients understand what's next. Um, and so
Yep.
I've learned over the years to take all of the challenges and turn them into opportunities, and that's the one that I see happening most.
Thank you, Rob. Kristen, how have you seen your requests from your clients and the way in which you need to adapt and help them to make decisions about technology change now with this kind of pendulum swinging, right, from hybrid to fully home based to RTO? What trends are you seeing?
Absolutely, sure. Our clients are always asking us what's next, what's going on, who's doing the next step, and what is that, right? I want to be ahead of everyone else. How do I get there? And like Rob mentioned, there is a lot of uncertainty right now, especially with AI, because the job you have today may not be there tomorrow too. So we have to plan not just for what's going on business strategy, but what do those roles actually look like in the future, and how are we future proofing for that, and allowing our end users to grow into those new roles, into this new environment. And so intelligent workspaces are really it's a well-connected room, right? We're using technology to, with human-centric workplace strategy to improve experiences and performance, and connect kind of all the elements of physical and a digital workspace in a room. And that's a lot different than walking in and hitting a touch panel and saying, "Okay, turn the system on." This is really improving upon the user experience. This is a room where you can walk in. There's collaboration tools ready for you to go. They know it's you. To what extent, we'll get into security a little bit later, but um, uh, how is that technology making you a more efficient uh, employee, or an
Hmm.
efficient company, and what tools work best for you? And I think when we're looking at, when our company looks at AI, or just new tools in general, the consensus up to this point, especially through COVID, was, God, not another app. Right? I don't want to learn another app. And now it's interesting, because it's just like, maybe my team's mindset hasn't switched too far into that, but it's really like, okay, what new apps can we create to make our company run better, and not necessarily just what's out there, right? um, and that's exciting, because that opens up the door, for a lot of other possibilities as far as our process and how we work and our workflow and how efficient we are. And
Hmm.
so these smart workplaces can really um, lend companies to grow as people are coming back into the office, or especially in the hybrid situation, which obviously is not going away. um, as your company grows and you maybe add multiple sites globally, and you're trying to create this more flexible work arrangement as your complexity grows, it can kind of be hard to keep a pulse on what's happening in each office. It can be hard to um, understand what culture is happening over in the US versus an office in Japan versus an office
Good
in
point.
London versus what,
Yeah.
how am I helping my company grow if I don't even have that information and don't really know what they're working on or don't know how well they're working or if the technology is efficient for that office. And I think
Yeah.
so when we're looking at these types of spaces, not just the tech, but what kind of data are we getting from that tech, and how can we use that to improve performance, and also how to make the workplace better for our employees. You can use those analytics to really help scale your company, and that all kind of ties into this intelligent workspace. So it's exciting.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think you bring up so many good points there, right? Not only is it a business culture, but an inter or intra company culture, depending on the location of the office, right? And then there's I think you may have coined a new three-letter acronym here too as well, right? NAA, not another app, right? So um, hey, Peter, what are you seeing as well in terms of trends? And also, since it's now been brought up twice, AI. Um, talk a little bit about maybe the difference between automation, right, in these spaces versus actual intelligent spaces. Can you talk a little bit about other differences and give us your thoughts on that?
I think I think AI over the past couple of years has been somewhat confused with automation to a certain extent. We talk about smart workplaces and that kind of thing, and I think that the term AI is pretty loosely thrown around. I mean, we've been automating spaces for 30, 40 years, for as long as I can remember. We've been automating lighting and security and all sorts of things. Um, I think where AI is really starting to come into its own, some examples would be like in education, for example, if you've got, say, nursing simulation, and you've got students that are working with either virtually or they're working with mannequins and so on, and AI can supplement that user experience. So what I mean by that, where AI, you can have conversations with AI. So typically in a nursing simulation environment, you've got a mannequin and you've got someone in a control room listening to what the student is saying and then responding back as the mannequin's voice. And that's fine, and that's worked very successfully over the years. However, it's a very resource heavy process. You need someone listening, you need someone talking, you need someone knowing what they're talking about. Um, and it's not scalable. So AI can automate that process and actually come in and have those conversations with the students. So the students could be learning, or more students can be learning simultaneously rather than being restricted to the number of academics or facilitators that might be there. So I think if we think about AI, I don't want to really say taking over someone's role or position, but effectively that's what it's doing in a lot of instances, where it's supplementing the human, whether that is, as I said, nursing simulation or live translation and transcription. Right, we're seeing a lot of that
Yeah.
now. So we're taking that, what they call the human in the loop, out of that process, which is quite interesting, and it creates a more efficient space. But at the end of the day, it's all about what they call HCD, human-centered design, and that comes back to then the user experience. So it's fine to have all this technology, it's fine to have all this AI, but how are we actually deploying it? How are we actually using it? And if we can focus on that human-centered design and what's required, and is it actually useful, then I think that we can utilize these technologies in a positive and efficient way.
Understood, Pete. You made some good points there as well. And the one thing that I jotted down here was, AI as a supplement to the human, right? Not back to what you originally said about the taking over, right? Quote unquote. I think that's too maybe too far afield for the state of the technology now anyway, right? But yes, supplementing the human and AI as a tool, I think both in terms of your clients as well as your roles as technologists and designers and strategists, and that's something that I mentioned at the beginning of this will probably branch off, and I think we're already starting, right? But Rob, maybe if could you talk about a bit about AI as a tool um, for for use by the consultant or the AEC community, architects and consultants and design engineers?
Sure. Well, starting first from the perspective of how AI is affecting our clients and leaving for later how we ourselves are using it. Um, it depends on how we engage with the client and where we are in the process of the project. So if we're brought in as a technology designer, architectural schematic design and onward, AI offers all these incredible opportunities to have improved camera tracking and design rooms around things like meeting facilitation and automatic transcription and so forth, like Pete was mentioning. It's a tactical answer to some of the challenges of the day-to-day work lives that we have. If we're engaged earlier in the process, a client comes to us not for design, but rather strategy, and we're participating in, among other things, the question of whether there needs to be a project and what form it should take, and how should the floor plate of this office of the future that's being discussed be apportioned. We look at AI as, and Kristen, I think you mentioned it when you said the challenge of keeping the pulse of what's happening. AI is the ultimate tool to draw insights from data, and our role becomes much less audiovisual and much more about linking disparate systems and implementing smart building sensor applications, so that we can, with all humility, design spaces that have their own usage measured for an audience, us ourselves included, that stands to learn how something is used in a future that we acknowledge we ourselves don't know the answer to what comes next. And so the design of space and the guidance
Hmm.
of our clients to make use of existing spaces to which we retrofit sensors and applications to measure, and also the design of new spaces that allow this measurement to be made possible, is a huge part of how we use AI. And dialing the clock back several years, there's nothing new about IoT and smart building sensors and being able to derive analytics from systems. But the old conundrum was, okay, we've got all this data, now what do we do with it? And AI, I think, is proving to be a very successful answer to that problem. We don't know what we can do with it. Let's feed it into this AI that will scrape these multitudes of data and then provide us insights that we ourselves didn't even think to ask for. We're seeing our clients do that. And I confess, coming from a broadcast and media and audiovisual background, it's taken me now a couple of years to catch up to our own clients who are coming from higher education, like Pete mentioned, and also particularly in financial and scientific applications and research. These folks know data and they know how to derive insights from it. And I find the challenge for us as audiovisual and systems and experience designers is to design facilities that normalize all of the data being barfed out by all of these systems into a common repository from which insights can be derived, a data lake, as we call it. And so being able to link the conference camera in a room, which offers its own feature of people counting and location tracking in conference room seats, to the occupancy sensing system that's part of a separate sustainability initiative for lighting. And to link those two things together and to understand the success of people counting data happening in conference rooms, and then let that inform the decision of how the floor plate should be apportioned for a client who very much wants to know what the next step is. um, that's our challenge, and that's how we
Yeah,
use AI in design, is to really focus on the built environment and measurement of its use.
it seems excellent points, Rob, and it seems like one of the things that I'm thinking of as I'm listening to you. Um, it seems as if we may even be struggling with a bit of a catch-22 here, right? Because you have to build the systems to get the data first. So there's a little bit of a cart before the horse in some respects, Although I think a lot of the things that you mentioned, the people counting, the room utilization, and so on, are are already in existence. Probably at many of your clients. But Kristen, I'm wondering if you've had the opportunity as part of your technology strategy with clients. Are you looking back at their utilization data and trying to use that data and analyze, AI, use AI to analyze that data as a tool? How?
Absolutely, and I think that gets into kind of your next topic more on like system monitoring and management. But taking data from designs that we've done and tracking how those systems perform and how those products perform allows us to better estimate what or really validate why we should use a certain um, system versus another, or just seeing the longevity of these systems. We've recently started uh, providing system monitoring and system management systems for clients, and so we're grabbing that data now. But I assume very soon we'll be able to really nail down, hey, you know what, this system worked really well. It didn't fail for 5 years, and or it didn't fail for 10 years, or it didn't fail for 15. And using that data to really build in um, systems that work well and proven longevity or proven functionality, and how it helps our clients. So um, we always like to understand our pain points from our clients, and obviously that just the role of AI is shifting everything. So it's interesting because you'd mentioned it may not be taking over. It is taking over. uh, you know, uh, I can't think of the name of the role, but the person that takes notes in the courtroom now doesn't have a
Facility,
job
Stenographer.
the
because
stenographer.
thank you, stenographer. For the record, took all of those jobs, right?
Hmm.
So, and those are very qualified people. Those are very detail oriented, phenomenal listeners, can type super fast, uh, amazing skill sets. Translate now are out of a job like that.
So
And
that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
oh no, I was just going to say, and like you look at programming, you look at students that are starting to graduate from college and they can't get jobs, and they studied programming or computer science, and now, well, I can write code in 2 seconds, and I don't know code, not well, right? And so it's just, well, where's the next job? And so it's really changing everything. But
Yeah, and it's sorry, I just have to point out, it's worth mentioning, it doesn't so much matter what we as designers do. It doesn't so much matter how human-centered our projects are and how much guidance we offer our clients to be human-centered. These things are going to happen in the world, whether we want them to or not, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what walk of life you're in. Some
sure,
things will get better, some things will get worse, and it's the adaptation to the unknown and the design of spaces that accommodate this wave, which we can, through our clients, choose to be surfing or roiled under. And that's
absolutely,
kind of,
yeah. It's all about adaptation and understanding that this is a great tool that we can use and be more competitive with and grow and be smarter with. But those that aren't adapting it are already going to be in are already in trouble. So um, it's interesting because AI comes in so quickly too. I mean, um, it's just removing jobs. Um,
So I was gonna I was gonna leave the Q&A till the end, and we will for the most part. But there's some coming in here that are so juicy, right? I just have to,
I
and
bet.
they're so relevant,
uh,
right? I just have to toss them in here, and one in particular is from a gentleman I call the professor, right? So it's a friend of all of ours, Alan Braun, and he says that the ROI on AI is difficult at this point. So, how do you advise your clients on when or if to join the AI march, right? But I want to toss this one over to you, Peter, and just say, how do to Kristen's point, right? So, So in some instances, it's not just the helper, right? It's the replacement. So I mean, are we at the point where you as consultants are you having to walk a fine line between a suggestion to adopt that could potentially put roles at risk in a company, but let me hear your thoughts on that, Pete.
Uh, John, that's our job. It's not to put people out of work. It's to put the right technology in front of the client. It's to solve their problems. It's to meet their needs. If that ends up replacing people, there's all. It's an evolution. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you could go back in time and look at how people thought the television was going to replace the radio, and then the internet would replace the television, and it's like it all can still coexist, obviously to a certain extent. But once again, we get paid to advise our clients on the solutions that are currently available to meet their needs and to meet those requirements.
Mhm.
So, I mean, like to Kristen's point, sorry, if you're in a court system, you want to be as efficient as possible. And if that means AI can come in and do a better job, because I mean, let's face it, like from a translation perspective, AI is now more accurate than the human.
Mhm.
So why wouldn't you deploy it? Like if it's it's cheaper, it's more efficient, it's more accurate. I don't. I mean, why would you not roll it out? So, look, it's inevitable. This is always going to happen, and we need to always keep looking forward. And how is that? I mean, Alan mentioned about the ROI of it. It in certain applications, like especially translation, transcription. I mean, the ROI is huge for that kind of thing. I mean, if you have a look at a setup like, say, the UN, and they've got like one translator per foreign diplomat there. I mean, and you don't need them anymore. Suddenly, you've the ROI. Well, okay, well, do we need a space this large? Do we need to pay all these people to fly here, or to put them up for accommodation, or to pay
Mhm.
their wages, all that kind of stuff? So, the ROI, depending on the application, can be massive. But it's like anything that we do; it's application specific.
We'll
Sure.
mention, I don't know about you, Pete and Kristen, but our clients' adoption of AI is not based on what I tell them the ROI is. It's already underway in force, considering that our clients are, among other things, maybe like a global law firm. And the audio-visual applications of AI, or the media or workplace real estate applications of AI, are minuscule compared to how they apply to a legal practice. And the ROI in that example is the savings of, sadly, potentially thousands of paralegals and contract interpreters and discovery professionals in law. And I think that I feel obligated to approach the subject with a tremendous amount of sensitivity, because it's not about one technology being better than the other, the automobile being more efficient and faster than a horse. Of course, it is that, except the difference being the humans are the horses. So there's a certain sensitivity, I think, that we're obligated to have when talking about it. But I make no mistake in thinking that I'm in a position to advise our clients as to whether or not to adopt AI in their own business. They're already doing it. If they're not, they're talking to folks who are. And it's a question of whether we're leaving unchecked value on the table in the other technology systems that we design for them by not adopting AI to the same extent that their own business is, and how we can help them unlock that value, because now they're scrambling for increased efficiency across all of the other aspects of what they do. Back to the smart buildings and sensors and analytics, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Well, I think that's a good segue too, right? Let's talk a little bit about monitoring and management systems, and specifically about maybe predictive analytics, right? Trying to determine the potential for failure in advance of the actual failure itself in these buildings and rooms and so on. Um, I don't know. We'll toss it to you, Kristen. What are your thoughts on that and experience?
I think it's extremely important. I think there's talk about ROI, right? And efficiencies in your workplace. So having that insight to know when a system's going to go down or a camera's not going to work or something's not turning on before your CEO comes into a boardroom to speak in front of 20 people, 50 people, the whole company, right? That saves them not only embarrassment or shuffling before an important discussion, but it also can save, obviously time and money. And I think um, having the right solution is really important. So not just a system monitoring or not a system management software, but making sure that that software is really robust, that it's not, just bottom feeder something that someone's trying to sell you. Make sure that that system is really organized and agnostic, and can cover your entire system. Makes it a lot easier. I think something to really consider when you're looking at something like that is um, security. What's going on with all your data? Um, who has access to that? How is it secured? Is it secured? Or, are companies looking at that? And then the data that is coming into that system, how is that really being used? Is it just telling you something went down, or is it actually helping you be more efficient and actually make more money as a company? So I do think that it is extremely important, and as consultants, at least at our company, we definitely promote that with our clients and have those discussions very early on.
Pete, how about you? As part of a um, a larger engineering firm, so you're responsible for, you're part of a group that's responsible for this technology practice, but NV5 is a much larger engineering firm that addresses IT and all the other systems. And are you seeing it? Are you seeing these monitoring solutions as continuing to be disparate, or is there integration occurring at that level as well?
I'm seeing some amazing technologies that are being deployed, and we've there's one that comes to mind. It's called Intermesh, and it monitors everything. As long as it's on the network, it'll monitor the whole lot, and it does things like, when I say monitoring, it's not just is it on, is it off, is it broken. It does things like monitoring the heartbeat of the network. So a heartbeat of the network is like our pulse, and if it notices any oddities in those signals, right, in the pulse of the network for that device, it will flag it and say, hey, look, we think there could be a problem with this product. Like, it's actually going to that level, not waiting for it to fail, but actually sort of predicting when it may fail because of some oddities that are going on. I mean, everything's on the network these days, so it does make monitoring a lot easier. But yeah, I think that there's so much value in that, and then you add control on top of that. You add asset management on top of that. You add deployment on top of that, where you could actually deploy systems a lot quicker just by connecting them to the network, and they get configured remotely. Um, I, it's unbelievable. I don't think that we've really seen the best of this technology. I think it's from a rollout perspective, it's still relatively new, but we are starting to gain a lot of momentum, especially in other parts of the world. Not hopefully things will pick up in the US, but I just see it as I just see that every organization needs to have a platform like that, to know what's going on with all their equipment.
Hmm. And I think, going back to what Kristen said, that you've got to have those conversations early on. right? Because it is such an integral part of everything that's going on in the space. Um, I wanted to
I was going to say
go
it
over to
comes back to
Rob.
a bigger conversation though, which is really like we talk about convergence, and we've spoken
Mhm.
about convergence of AV and IT for years, but really that's been at the physical layer, at the cabling layer, not so much from a networking connectivity perspective. And we're starting to see a lot more organisations allow not have these siloed networks like we used to for AV systems and other systems. They're now allowing them onto their network. And that, once again, that allows them to fully monitor it, that allows them to secure the network a lot better rather than having these shadow networks out there that are unmanaged. They get deployed and no one manages them. And then next thing you know, there's some security breach. So I think it's vitally important that we do have fully converged networks, and that onus is not just on the client to put this stuff on their enterprise network, but it's also on the manufacturers to make sure that their devices, from especially on the AV side of things, are fully compliant with IT standards and security standards, because
Yeah.
a lot of them are not, and that becomes a real problem. And then the client says that's not going on my network. So it's the onus is really on the manufacturer, and if they start doing that and complying, then we're going to see a lot more fully converged networks in the future.
So Rob, I understand the folks at TAD know a thing or two about monitoring, and wonder if you can jump in on this and share some of your experiences, as I know you've developed an ecosystem. Your team has developed a tool and an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Can you tell
It's
us
the
about?
greatest excuse to go beyond the bounds of the built environment, as we say, as consultants, is to develop monitoring applications because it's what our clients crave. They need to know. My favorite subject about this, by the way, is predictive analysis of failures, because we're designing and installing these experiential pedestrian interventions in a high-profile financial lobby in the UK is one example. Well over 200 displays in a collage, an assemblage that's through Unity, displaying graphics and animations and delightful things happening that circulate between the displays. And it's crucial that any one of those 250 flat screens of different types and vintages and models, that if any one even shows the slightest sign of behaving out of spec, that an alert gets sent or a runbook automation get triggered. And that alert needs to come from deep API integration. And this is something we love working with Sony on for the Bravia display line, to know not only that it's pinging on the network and that it's connected effectively, but what the CPU temperatures are and what their boundaries are for green, yellow, red status. And not knowing necessarily what's going to come next, but if it just starts to drift a little bit, to trigger an alert to the appropriate party, to take some action, because we acknowledge that we're responsible as designers, not just for the experience of this assemblage of screens, but also to make sure that it's consistent and it remains up and running. And that requires really granular access to the devices. So as consultants, this is what we do with our TAD Monitor platform. It's the best reason to build deeper relationships with the manufacturers, and then in partnership with, like among them, Sony, delivering to our clients experiences that stand the test of time. So that's like a big example. My favorite tiny example, and this is the trend of intelligent workspaces. We talked about this, the group of us, what little while ago. How funny it is that it's contingent on the USB cord, that I be able to connect my device to the room and experience the thing that consists of my laptop, except on a larger screen. We enjoy counting the number of times the USB-C connection is made in a conference room table, and then sending an alert after 700 reconnects that cable should just get replaced as a matter of policy. And that to me is like the most
Yeah.
simplistic example of using monitoring, quote unquote, analysis to guarantee as best as possible continued uptime, to design for our clients experiences that are not just good on day one, but day 1001. And so there's different ranges of that example, but it all comes through monitoring. And we don't have the time. I could keep going with that, but those are some
I
fun
knew we could.
examples. Oh, I'm sorry. And John, that's the other thing. You mentioned, how do we solve for the chicken and egg problem? How do we design smart building strategies and sensors and things that link and derive data from all of these devices in a new project when we really needed to have done that in the previous project to inform the new? And the answer is, for the last 10, 15 years, all of these devices have had all this data. In fact, many of them are just spouting them out on the network without our knowledge. And going back 20 years, it took effort to program them and to make control work. And today, there's no more effort needed. They're spouting all this information willingly. We can deploy these solutions to existing projects and gather data from old devices on networks,
Mhm.
provided that they're discoverable, as Pete mentioned. Deploying the TAD Monitor platform allows us to do that discovery for the devices that are connected. And if it doesn't, guess what? We're happy to provide network design and consultation services. So there's, again, opportunities coming out of the challenges.
For sure. Yeah. You know, Kristen, I think this is also a nice dovetail into something that I know is near and dear to your heart, which is sustainability and accessibility. And, you know, can you talk a little bit about how monitoring enables more power and more confidence in determining the efficient utilization of all the things that go into sustainability and accessibility.
Sure. When you're getting all of this data, you can use it to for your sustainability plan. And so, seeing the energy efficiency of turning the systems off for 8 hours a night, or seeing when you swap out a product for another product that has energy savings versus not, or when that video wall shuts down at night versus the other one that does not shut down because it doesn't have that feature. It is very apparent very quickly to what you are paying for. And so, um, we can use all this data to really help companies push their sustainability initiatives as well. Some that may not be really thinking about it, or they're thinking about it, but maybe not from an AV perspective. And as designers, we see, we work obviously with architects, and they constantly push lead or some kind of certification, and they really are passionate about sustainability initiatives in the architecture, um, or in AEC in the AEC industry, and how do we make that better as AV consultants? And when I think about, like, when I walk into like a lobby that is built for LEED and sustainable, and they have ambient light, and they have low dim lights, and they have, they really paid attention to all the materials to make sure that they got their points. And then you walk in and you see this massive video wall that is hot a few feet away, right? And it's just like, well, I know that that doesn't count towards LEED points, but that would have
Must not be
made
a Sony.
it wouldn't, no, right, exactly. But it would have killed the certification if it could have, and it's just like, looking at that stuff, and it's just like, "Oh my gosh, there's a better way to do this." And so, having that data to show the C-suite at a company, or to show the end users, "Hey, if you switch to this type of product, it will not only help you with your sustainability efforts, but it will save you a lot of money." So, talking
Yep.
about ROI, right? It is night and day, and you can easily see that in the data. So, it's one way to really, we have those conversations early on too. Is, what are your sustainability initiatives? Would you like to save some money? Let's look at these options, and let's design for that. And also, looking at that data ourselves as consultants, we can really start designing, or we can design, or we do design for sustainable systems, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that those specs are met on projects as well, to help the end user and just the world.
So going back to the opening statement in terms of the, like I said, very broad topics that I knew would branch out. But one of the things that we did mention is the evolution, right, of the intelligent workspaces. And in speaking of the evolution, I've noticed something, and I think in years past, there had been a trend and a move to an awful lot of outsourcing of the internal production, right? There were many companies who, when I first got into this business, had their own internal production group, right? And producer, camera people, so on, editing, and that I think that was a kind of a vestige of the old in-house, slide creation people, and then it sort of moved away for a few years where there was a lot of outsourcing of production, but now I'm starting to see it. I want to know if you guys are seeing this as well, and maybe you could elaborate on it a little bit more. The insourcing again of production, and the way that production now is, of course, very very different. In terms of the adoption of virtual production, which was really driven, I think, in part by development in the cinematic world, and accelerated by COVID, right? Especially on the cinematic side of the business. But what are you guys seeing in terms of the insourcing of production and the utilization of virtual production for CEO town halls and things like that? Is it a trend?
For sure. Yeah. That's another aspect of hybrid is most of our large clients have really dug into media and produced content as a strong facet of their branding, because so much of what they conduct now in the world is done online as compared to pre-COVID. And so many more of our workplaces obviously incorporate studios. But what follows from that also is that executive suites, large scale conference rooms, auditoria, town halls, and multi-purpose rooms are expected to have much higher production values for streamed content, for pre-recorded, time-shifted, or even live conference content. And folks have greater and greater expectations of those production values from having seen other firms. And so it's a snowball effect that all works in service of the large scale LED and XR and camera, et cetera, industries that we rely on. And that collides nicely with inexpensive cameras and the continued convergence of broadcast and consumer technology, and inexpensive smaller cameras from Sony and others that really make cinema quality media accessible to corporate staff operators. And so helping our clients understand the spectrum of production values that they could expect to have for a given facility, a given infrastructure, and a given staffing, lighting, et cetera, is a huge part of the work we do as workplace planners.
Yeah. Sony. I think Sony has a unique perspective on this, because as you mentioned, Rob, we are manufacturers of both imaging technologies, right, cameras, as well as display technologies. And in addition to our crystal LED products, we have products that are specifically targeted towards virtual production and rental and staging and so on. So Verona, Capri, and we've been able to be in a very unique position where we've got a deep DNA in both sides of that equation. And Pete, I'm wondering, you've got an interesting perspective, I think, because you've got an awful lot of experience on the financial side as well as the education side. And are you seeing a call for virtual production in both of those? And how do they differ?
I wouldn't necessarily say virtual production. Like on the education side, they are using we're seeing a lot of universities deploying LED extensively, and as I said, not so much from a virtual production perspective, but from an education perspective, where we've seen that the technology and the price come down, and also obviously projectors are starting to we're starting to move away from projection as LCD screens get larger, LED gets cheaper. So we're seeing it used in that sense, probably more from an experiential sense. So on the education side, so in the past we've designed immersive spaces with projection. Now we're starting to go into that LED space or use the LED technology instead of projection. It has many advantages. I mean, we have it's brighter, it's crisper. We're not edge blending. We're not processing. Typically, having to do as much processing. So there's pros and cons to both. On the corporate side, once again, more about the experience. Where we are seeing it used, obviously not just boardrooms, but we're seeing it in obviously lobbies, reception areas. We're seeing a lot more digital art being deployed. Companies like Art Republic, doing digital curation, getting digital designers, who are in turn, some of them using AI to create their digital art pieces, to make them active and integrate them into the space. Like it's actually quite amazing. So once again, not so much on the production side, but we are seeing LED and these technologies being deployed elsewhere, both in education and in corporate.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm looking at the clock here. We've got about 9 minutes left for questions. As I said, we've got some interesting ones and some juicy ones, and there's one in particular that I think I'm going to leave till the end. I think it'll be a good closer. Let's see. Let's start here. David has a question.
I was going to say, John, there's a
Yeah.
question from a John G from New Jersey, and he said,
All right, producer, get ready on the dump button.
are there aspects of your work you would think that you think will be made obsolete by AI?
I think that's a great one for the group here, right? So we spoke about how AI could potentially impact your clients' organization and roles within your clients. How does it change your jobs? What could what part of your job will change, go away, be replaced by AI? I think that's an intriguing question.
I'm more concerned with contractors saying that they can design, taking business away from us than AI. I think we need to embrace AI, and not just AI, but any new technology that comes along, rather than try to fight it. I mean, there's always been new technologies that have come out, and we could either choose to sort of think about how we could utilize it and be more efficient with our time. I mean, as consultants, we get paid for our time, our knowledge, and bits of paper with lines on it. That's it. We've got nothing to sell, right? Unless you're Rob and you've got some software you can sell. But other than that, we don't have anything to sell except for those three things. So we are a time-based industry. We need to be as efficient as possible with our time. And if we can utilize these tools to be more efficient, then that's exactly what we should do. So I think we should embrace it. I don't see it taking away from what we do. I'd see it more enhancing how we design and how we consult.
I wanted to point out, it just occurred to me when Pete, when you were speaking, do any of us remember 15 years ago, give or take, maybe longer, before Zoom, before cloud conferencing, and even before desktop conferencing solutions, before software-based video conferencing, you had to go to the video conference capable conference room that had a broadcast, practically a broadcast camera, in which you would then initiate, Cisco or what have you conference. And how many of us saw USB webcams Velcroed to the top of a dark touch panel that was left unused because they wanted to use the conference room for Skype? And
Yep.
here's the space, and the joke was it might not work as well, but at least it costs a lot. And so how many of these conference rooms are we guilty of having designed unwittingly when software-based conferencing tools and then later Zoom and web conferencing and desktop applications took over? And these rooms were left underutilized, wasted, and ripped out and replaced with USB webcams. And my question for us, this is what I feel like what we're responsible to answer in our industry is, are we at risk of designing rooms, conference rooms, as one example, that have components of their expensive systems soon to be obsoleted by the Teams facilitator agent, or an automatic transcription, or an automatic translator, or some other thing that makes our choices of camera and microphone and display and furniture seem quaint and antiquated. Like, what are the things we're designing now that are at risk of being changed? And that's a question that occurred to me as you were speaking, Pete. That's what I see potentially happening in AI. And I realize, John, I'm choosing to answer the question, right? Like, what aspects of our project work do we think will be made obsolete by AI? And that's the example that occurs to me.
I'm I'm speechless, but you guys are the ones that I think need to jump in on that. Kristen, maybe you could have a follow up to that, and then, man, this has been such a great conversation, but we're starting to get close to the end. So I did want to leave you with one question, Kristen. I'll give you an opportunity to add to or rebut what Rob just said.
I think it's very valid. I think we don't have a crystal ball. AI is developing so rapidly, and technology is so rapid that it's hard to estimate. What the next tech is. I think it's really important to just plan for the infrastructure. Make sure that our systems have infrastructure in place to be able to future proof for the next 10 to 15 years. Um, and Yeah, I mean, I look forward to it, though. I am very excited about what's to come. So
Okay. So 1 minute or less each. I'm going to leave you with this last question. There's a lot of great questions we just didn't get to, but this one is from Tammy, and I thought it would be a great question to close. Right? She says, "Hi all. I'm a fourth-year student at UGA, working for a local AV consulting and integration firm. I came into the industry without prior AV experience, and aside from the IT foundation I gained studying management information system, I'm still exploring whether this field is the right long term path for me. I want to make the most of the opportunity I have now. If you were in my position, what would you focus on learning to get the most value out of this experience? And what areas of the AV industry are growing the fastest? And where would you invest your time to build skills that translate well into the broader workforce?" Wow. We'll start with you, Kristen, then Pete, and we'll finish up with Rob.
1 minute.
That's all we got. 1 minute or less from each of you. Yeah, we got
I
3 minutes
think
left.
I think anyone entering into this field or this industry, it's hard to see how many opportunities there are. There's a lot of opportunity for growth. Something that I focused on when I first came in, because I came in pretty young in my 20s as a consultant, was I had a phenomenal mentor. So I would make sure that wherever you are, that you are soaking up as much as you possibly can, and that you have someone that is looking out for your best interests, and they are a veteran in this industry, and they can show you um, how to grow in this industry. I think that's very, very important starting off. Um, I come from a music and audio background, and grew up. My uncle was an architect, so this job made sense for me. I've absolutely loved my career as a consultant, um, and I just encourage you to explore the opportunities. I think it's a very fun field. Something that I've always enjoyed is that it is constantly changing, and you are constantly learning new things. It's not a boring field. So I think work hard, grasp as much as you can, and I think it's a great industry.
Thank you. Pete, 30 seconds.
30, yeah, thanks, Kristen. So I think, first of all, I think the AV industry, from a financial perspective, is the correct industry to be in. I believe, compared to the sort of cousin industries, IT, security, these kinds of things. I think, one, I think there's more money in it. Two, if I'm focusing on anything, I would be focusing on IT, enterprise IT, architecture, and also security, and how that applies to AV. Because at the end of the day, all our AV systems all reside on the network, and so that network is critical. And from my experience, I don't believe there's enough people, whether that's on the design side or the implementation side in the AV world, that knows enough about IT. So that's where the money is. That's where I'd be going.
Thank you, Pete. Rob, take us home.
All right. I agree with everything Kristen said for sure. Having a strong mentor is absolutely key. And I owe all of my success to that kind of underpinning for sure. My background also being in music and audio. And Pete, I certainly second what he said regarding audiovisual as having strong success opportunity, both financial and also mostly because I think it's much less susceptible to commoditization and also automation as compared to IT. But I'm biased because of my background. I would add to that. I hold hope that regardless of what happens in the world with AI and all of these things, that knowledge of acoustics and human factors and design and architecture and interiors and user experience design, these things will remain paramount in importance, whether it's for a workplace, an entertainment venue, a home, retail, hospitality, etc. So if those things are interesting to you, Tammy, I think definitely keep us in mind as an industry as a great place to express those interests. And thank you. Great question.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. So we'll wrap it up. Again, thank you all for your time, for your insight. Thanks everyone who attended this amazing panel and the webinar. And if there are questions that are unanswered, we do have the ability to go back and we can address those. Again, if anyone wants to contact any of the panelists, we have a slide here that shows everyone's LinkedIn, so you can maybe grab a shot of that and go ahead and if you want to talk to them about engaging their firm for your needs, by all means, please do so. And a very quick reminder of all of our Tech Tuesday webinars are available at our YouTube site. And I think our producer's dropping that into the chat right now, so you can link to our previous Tech Tuesday webinars. And a quick reminder of our next webinar. It's going to be a special year end. It'll be with Rich Ventura, our Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Sony's Professional Display Solutions of America. And he's going to do a year in review, highlights from the year, and trends to watch. So thanks to everyone for attending. Thank the three of you especially for your participation. I'll try to do one of these and let you know how how appreciative I am from the heart. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.